Hello and welcome back to Vintage Lunchbox Reviews, a show on which I review my vintage lunchboxes. It's right there in the name. Today I will be reviewing this, one of the most classic 80s lunchboxes. This is highly desirable. It's one people enjoy, people have great memories of. I certainly do. This is the Dragon's Lair lunchbox. If you were not alive in the 1980s, let me tell you what Dragon's Lair was like. There were arcades everywhere in the early 1980s, and arcade games looked like Pac-Man. Arcade games looked like Asteroids. Arcade games looked like Galaga and Space Invaders. They were games that had small little characters that were made out of pixels of random colors. The graphics were okay, the sound was okay, but they were definitely computer images on a screen. And I, like many other kids, walked into the arcade in 1983 and saw someone playing a cartoon. And that cartoon was Dragon's Lair. Dragon's Lair was an arcade game that didn't use traditional computer graphics like what we thought of as graphics at that time. It actually showed cartoons inside the arcade machine. It had a laser disc that played cartoons. Now, what we gained in graphics, what a lot of people know over the years, we lost in controls. And so the way Dragon's Lair worked was that you had a 4-direction joystick that went forward, backwards, left, and right, and a button. And what happened was a segment of the cartoon would play, and then you would have a split second to react. Something would flash on the screen. Maybe a monster would come from the right-hand side. Maybe the right move was to hit the sword button, or maybe it was to jump away from the monster. But which direction did you jump away from the monster? Well, we always found out what the wrong move was, and Dirk the Daring, the star right here of Dragon's Lair, would die in comical ways. And it was very entertaining when he died, which is what kept us returning at 50 cents a play. Dragon's Lair was the first arcade game that cost 50 cents to play. Every other arcade game cost a quarter. So Dragon's Lair was very groundbreaking. Another feature that Dragon's Lair had in the arcades was many Dragon's Lair arcade machines had a second monitor on top of the regular monitor because there were so many crowds of people gathering around to see this game that the person in front of the machine would be looking at the main monitor, but all of us kids that had surrounded the machine would look up at this other monitor just to watch the video. It was very groundbreaking at the time. It was not groundbreaking in the gameplay, but the visuals and the audio were absolutely amazing. No one had ever seen anything like that. We were actually controlling a cartoon. And so this is the Dragon's Lair lunchbox from the same year, 1983. 1983, we got the arcade game. 1983, we got the lunchbox. So there you can see the star of the game was Dirk the Daring, and we could see Dirk down there with his shield, right? And then we have, do we have the princess? We definitely have the princess on the other side here. But we have Singe. Singe the dragon. He was the fire-breathing dragon. And the setup of Dragon's Lair was very, very simple. The setup of Dragon's Lair was Singe had captured the princess, and Dirk had to rescue the princess. So Dirk had to make his way all the way through Singe's castle to finally get to the final room where Singe was, the treasure room, and survive many, many attacks from Singe. And then at the end, if you were able to rescue Princess Daphne, then she gave you a little smooch, and the game ended. By the way, a lot of people know that you can play these games today on your computer. There's an emulator that plays them, and it is called the Daphne emulator. That's why it's called Daphne, because this is Princess Daphne. So on this side of the lunchbox, you can see we've got this great artwork. We've got Singe. We've got him blowing fire. A lot of action going on, which is one of the great things about this particular lunchbox. But on the back side here, or maybe this is the front side, I'll just say on the other side, this is the artwork that I prefer. We've got Dirk the Daring right there, and boy, look at his face there. He's just got this intense look of focus as enemies are coming at him from every direction, all over the lunchbox. We've got some skeleton guys up here. We've got, I think these guys were called Giddy Goons in the game. There were, the Lizard King was a guy that you fought. There was Mordrock. There was the Black Knight. There was Smithies. So all these different enemies. There's the Mudmen, I think. These guys up here were Mudmen. So you can see all the enemies from the game are on here. And that was a great value to a lunchbox like this, because when you went to school and you took your lunchbox, you're like, I saw this game, Dragon's Lair, and they would go, oh, what's it about? You go, you fight these guys. There's this giant snake that comes after you. There's a dragon named Singe. Here he is. This is what it was like. So you couldn't play the game in school. You couldn't play the original version of Dragon's Lair. You couldn't play it on anything. There was no home computer at that time that could reproduce that type of animation. There were versions later. There were lots of versions later. In fact, Dragon's Lair is one of the games that's been released maybe more times than any other video game. There seemed like there are dozens and dozens and dozens of releases of Dragon's Lair. Every time there's a new computer system out or video game console, there's another version of Dragon's Lair. It's been remade. There are terrible versions on the NES, the Angry Video Game Nerd. One of his most infamous episodes is about the NES version of Dragon's Lair. I've reviewed the Commodore 64 version of Dragon's Lair. So they were all similar. They had the same characters, I guess I would say. They're not similar in gameplay. They're very, very different because those computers just couldn't do the kind of animation that was in Dragon's Lair. So again, we've got this great action shot. We've got this shot of all the enemies. But what else do we have? And it turns out we've got a lot of cool stuff. Now, there's always the first side here, which is hidden by the handle. So we could kind of see, I mean, you could look down there and you could see there's the castle. And you can kind of see what's going on. Also, I like to mention that you can see that all these lunchboxes have some sort of unified color theme. So you can see we've got a yellow border, and that yellow border goes on both sides, and it matches the handle. So we've kind of got this yellow theme going through the lunchbox. But anyway, again, we've got this artwork. And then as we go over here, I'm going to show this up here so you can see what's going on. You've got Dirk. And he's hanging on to that chain there, and that was definitely part of the game. A lot of the game's the little levels involve swinging or hanging from things, so you can see that. And what they've done here, which is something that a lot of these things do, is you don't want to have two Dirk the Darings side by side here because there's only one Dirk the Daring, right? I mean, in the game, there's only one Dirk. So you've got Dirk, but then this artwork kind of wraps around here, as you can see, and it wraps into this other scene. And then you can see Dirk again doing something else right there, right? He's got his sword. He's about to attack around this corner there. You know, there are enemies coming. Some more great artwork there. And then over, if we rotate around here to this side, this is a scene where he has rescued the princess. This is something that not a lot of us saw in the arcade. And you can see Singe in the background there. But yeah, you had to be pretty good to rescue old Princess Daphne from the dragon. And it was something that I was never able to do. And I spent lots and lots of my own lunch money playing Dragon's Lair. So this is a really, really good lunchbox. This is... you know, you've got just lots of action. You know, that's something that I always looked forward to, you know, on these types of things, is just things that are showing action. You know, that's what makes it great for me. I will mention something that will come up in a lot of these reviews is, as you can see in the corners, this has some rust. This has rusty corners. This is probably because it was put on the ground, scraped, things like that. There's also a little dent in one of the corners. There are many types of collectors in the world of many different types of collections, and I am one of the people that, as long as the artwork and looks pretty good, I don't really mind the condition of my lunchboxes. You can see something that you'll see a lot is these were laid on the ground and scuffed like that, and this border raises up, so it was almost like a protective layer. You could see that there is a little bit of scuffing up here, but because this is raised up higher, it doesn't affect the artwork. So that was actually it's almost like a screen protector on a phone, right? Or like how you have your case on your phone that raises up just a little bit so that if you drop it, it hits the protector, it doesn't hit the screen. You can almost think of this as the screen, right? And this is lifted just a little bit right there. As I run my hand across there, there's a little dent right there. So again, some people collect, mint condition things, and there are some things I do really, really, I don't want to say care about, but that are more important to me about the condition. But the lunchboxes really aren't one of those things, because when I see these and I see them in a condition, I know that they were used. I know that they were loved. I know that some kid took his lunch to school every day in this lunchbox or whatever and absolutely loved it. He was probably the envy of all his friends. And no matter how much these things cost, I think they're cheaper than it would cost me to beat Dragon's Lair today, which I'm not good at. This is one that I do not have a thermos for, and as you can see inside here, again, we've got a little bit more rust in there. I believe there are some treatments you can do to these lunchbox, or some restoration. I don't touch them. I don't try to restore them, and in fact, I use them. And I'll tell you a quick story. A couple of years ago, about 5 years ago, I went back to college and got my master's degree in professional writing. And I was going at a time where I had to work around my work schedule. I had to work around, I had kids, I had a wife, I had a lot of things. So it was really plugging holes in my day. When could I attend classes? And so because of that, I often had holes in my schedule where I would go to a class, have a big gap, and then go to another class. And so I ended up taking my lunch a lot of times, like on Saturdays, or take an evening class or something. But I would have these long periods where I wanted something to eat. And so I decided to use my vintage lunchboxes. And so I took these to school, to college. And I believe my classmates thought I was a little weird. Now, full disclosure, I was 20 years older than most of my classmates. So they did not grow up with metal lunchboxes, and they didn't know these. But the professors loved them. And I had many professors stop me in the hallway and say, "Is that Dragon's Lair? Oh, I remember Dragon's Lair." And I said, "Yeah." And we talked all about it. And they said, "Oh, they had this lunchbox," or they remember playing Dragon's Lair and things like that. So lots of good memories for me in regards to Dragon's Lair. And like I said, this is today, if you want to buy one in this condition, which is not perfect. I mean, you can see, I already mentioned there's a lot of scuffs. If you look on the edges, like on the corners, there's a lot of little rust spots or whatever. One in this condition will probably run you at least $50, $50 to $75. There's one on eBay right now that's a little bit worse condition than this one. That's listed at $119. Of course, value always goes up if you have the matching thermos. So if you have a matching thermos for this and don't want it, hit me up. I'll be glad to put it with this lunchbox. So anyway, thanks for watching, and tune in tomorrow to see what is on the lunch menu.